Welcome back to your lecture that provides an introduction to organizational behavior and management and evidence-based management. In the final part of the lecture, we will explain to you how you will be assessed. The formal assessment for this module consists of two parts, a written examination and an individual assignment. Both parts contribute equally to your final module mark. 50% of your module mark comes from the exam and the other 50% from the assignment. Written examination is conducted midway through the module session, and the individual assignment is due by the end of the module session. The details of the assessment are provided on Blackboard under the left-hand menu item called, well, what obviously, Assessment. What information is provided there? For the examination, it gives the exam date and explains the exam format. For the assignment, it includes two documents, assignment question and guidelines document, and assignment formatting and submission guidelines document. You need to download and read both documents. The Blackboard page with the assessment details also provides the assignment submission deadline and has a link to the submission site where you will be submitting your completed assignments. Let's look in more detail at what your written exam will entail. The exam will consist of 3 questions that you will need to answer in an essay format. You will have 3 hours, so an hour per each question. You will sit your examination in person. This is one part of this course that requires your physical presence and is not conducted online. And to answer one of the frequently asked questions, you will need to write your exam by hand in an answer book, not type it on a computer. In the exam paper, you will only have 3 questions and you will have no optional questions. You are given 3 questions and you will have to answer all 3. However, we make your life easy or easier by allowing you to see the exam questions beforehand. 2 weeks before you sit the exam, you will be given the list of 9 questions. Your 3 exam questions will come from this list. Because different groups of students will be sitting the exam at different places and in different time zones, each separate sitting will have its own set of 3 questions in order to avoid potential malpractice. The exam will cover all material in the module that you will have covered prior to the exam. In addition to providing you with seen exam questions, we will have a lecture dedicated to the exam revision, and there will also be a separate online discussion forum for you to ask any questions you may have with regard to the examination. Now on to the assignment. Your individual assignment is a report that you will write based on your analysis of a people management problem in your organization. Very detailed guidance on each step of the process of researching for and writing the assignment is provided in the assignment question and guidance document. And when I say detailed, well, the guidance document is about 20 pages long, possibly longer than your actual assignment will be. Your work on the assignment and the assignment write-up will broadly follow the key steps of the evidence-based management. Ask, acquire, appraise, aggregate, apply, and assess. Except that in the assignment you would only need to ask, acquire, appraise, and aggregate, but not apply or assess. So, firstly, you'll need to ask, that is, you'll need to identify a management problem and translate this management problem into an answerable question. Secondly, you'll need to acquire, which means you'll need to collect the relevant research evidence. You'll also need to identify what organizational evidence you would need to analyze the problem further. You are, however, not required to collect any organizational evidence. You will also need to identify the relevant stakeholders, but you do not need to actually consult with them. Thirdly, you'll need to appraise the evidence. That means you'll need to critically evaluate where the evidence comes from, how valid and reliable it is, and how applicable it is to your organizational context. Finally, you will need to summarize the evidence, and based on the evidence and your critical appraisal of it, you'll need to develop a set of recommendations for improvement. And you'll need to present those in the format of an email. In this email, you'll need to address your key internal stakeholder, or stakeholders if you so wish, and you'll need to explain to them your recommendations. Your assignment write-up will need to be structured into 7 sections: your management problem, research question, research evidence, stakeholders, organizational evidence, recommendations, and leadership lessons. In the introduction, you will need to briefly describe the organization and the people management problem that is the focus of your assignment. You will also need to outline your professional experience relevant to the problem. In second section, which is research question, you will need to explain how you translated the management problem into a researchable question and state this actual research question. In section 3, research evidence, you will need to describe your search for the academic research evidence that is relevant to your question, and then you need to critically appraise and summarize this evidence, outlining the key points that will form the basis for your recommendations. In the 4th section, the stakeholders, you will need to identify the stakeholders relevant to your problem and their interests. And you'll need to explain how they're affected by the problem and how they may be affected by the proposed solutions. In section 5, organizational evidence, you will need to outline the organizational evidence that you would require to support decision making for the problem and explain how you could acquire this evidence. In section 6, recommendations, you'll need to present evidence-based recommendations for tackling the problem in the form of a formal email addressed to key internal stakeholders. And you'll need to make sure that the form and style of the message is consistent with the conventions that are appropriate for this medium and appropriate to recommendations that you propose. In the concluding section, section 7, leadership lessons, you will need to reflect on what you have learned in this assignment. You'll need to explain how this learning will help your future work and studies and how it will influence your leadership style and strategy in tackling management problems. We want you to pace your work on your assignment evenly throughout the module so that you have adequate time to prepare and write it up. So we will ask you to prepare and present your work on particular parts of the assignment throughout the module session, starting next week. For your next week unit task and your next week's seminar, you will need to identify your management problem and translate it into a research question. How to do so is explained both in your assignment guidelines and in the next week's unit task. I will return to this matter shortly. Then later on in the module, we will ask you to do the work on your research evidence, that is section 3 of the assignment. And again, this will be your unit task and you will present your work at a seminar, that is seminar 6. And then you work for seminar 10 and that week's unit task will help you address section 4 of the assignment, the stakeholders. What you will need to do on your own is to do a bit more research for your section 3 following the feedback that would be provided to you. Then identify your organizational evidence for section 5 and then develop your recommendations in section 6 and derive your leadership lessons in section 7. In addition to this seminar guidance, the feedback, and of course the assignment question and guidance document, We'll also provide further help in a video tutorial on searching for research evidence in the library sources. There will also be a separate online discussion forum for your individual assignment queries where you can ask any questions related to the assignment. And you will also have an assignment surgery at the residential workshop. As I have just mentioned, your work on your assignment starts now and your unit task for next week. This is described in detail in your online module in week 5, and you will report on this work in seminar 2. This work will form the basis of the first 2 sections of your assignment, the management problem and research question. In practical terms, your week 5 unit task consists of 5 steps. First, download and read assignment question and guidance document. Second, complete the worksheet that is called Translate a Management Problem into a Researchable Question. This worksheet will guide you through the process of turning your problem into a question. Next, prepare a single PowerPoint slide using the template provided to you in the unit task. Then post your PowerPoint file on Seminar 2 discussion forum, starting a new thread. And finally prepare and then present a 2-minute seminar presentation to accompany your slide. The worksheet for the unit task will ask you to identify a people management problem in your workplace and will help you transform this problem into a research question using a series of clarifying questions. And all the instructions are provided in the worksheet. So you'll need to identify a problem that is related to managing people, not strategy or marketing, yes, or finance or operational processes. This is because in this module we are studying people management. You will be learning about marketing, operations, finance, strategy, and all the rest of them in other modules. This module is about managing people. How do you find a people management problem? What problems are people management problems? Well, for many, if not most of you, this would be obvious, but if that doesn't feel obvious, you can look at how we define organizational behaviors. Remember, early in this lecture, we talked about task performance, organizational citizenship behaviors, counterproductive behaviors, and organizational commitment or withdrawal. Look through this and see what behaviors you want to encourage and what behaviors you want to discourage as a manager. It's important that you choose a problem that is important for you as a manager in your workplace. The whole point of the assignment is not just to improve your skills as a manager, it's also to help you solve your workday management problems. So think what bothers you, what you want to improve, what would make your job as a manager easier. And make sure to choose a sufficiently narrow, specific and concrete problem. Not, how can I make everything better? Once you've found your people management problem, you need to rephrase the problem as a question. Say your problem is that your subordinates are underperforming against the targets. So your question would be, how do you improve the performance of subordinates against the targets? Try to be specific about what kind of performance you want to improve. Is it the quality of output or its quantity? Is it the timeliness? Or what is it exactly that you want people to do better or differently? Once you rephrased your problem as a question, you'll need to dig deeper and use clarifying questions to further develop your research question. Start with simple questions such as who, what, where, when, how, and why. Poet Rudyard Kipling called this his 6 honest serving men. He wrote, I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when and how and where and who. So, you start with these simple questions. For example, who is involved in this problem? What results do you want to achieve? Where did this problem arise? When does this problem happen? Why is this problem important? And then you move on to more probing questions. These more challenging questions are the questions that the evidence-based management recommends to use when you need to narrow down and focus your question to make it researchable and practical. So, here are the questions. P for population. To whom does the question apply? Does the question apply to the whole organization, particular unit within the organization, or particular group or category of employees? Intervention. What or how? What are you investigating? Are you investigating a particular management practice or technique or a particular individual, group, or organizational factor that affects organizational behavior? Comparison. To what do you compare your intervention? Are you comparing one management practice or technique to another practice? Are you comparing one group of employees to another group? Outcome. What are you trying to accomplish, improve, or change? What is your objective, purpose, or goal in this intervention? If you're looking to improve performance, what particular aspect of performance you want to improve? If you're looking to change behavior, what particular behavior you want to change? And finally, context. What organizational circumstances need to be taken into account? What organizational characteristics are important for your question and your intervention? Do organizational size, ownership, industry, or location may affect the problem and your intervention? Does recent history of the organization, say its past performance, mergers, other important events, would matter to your question? And the abbreviation for these clarifying questions, as you see, based on the first letters of every word, is peacock, and obviously, it would be spelled differently from the name of the bird, but at least it helps as a useful mnemonic. Once you have completed your worksheet, based on what you have done in that worksheet, you'll need to prepare a single PowerPoint slide using the template provided. This is how the template for the slide looks like. And we give you the template. You just download it, complete it, save it, and post on the discussion forum. And finally, all of you will present your question, your management problem, and your research question at the seminar, at seminar 2. And in your presentation, you'll need to briefly describe your management problem, you'll need to introduce your research question, and you'll need to comment on the peacock elements: population, intervention, comparison, outcome, and context. And your PowerPoint files will be uploaded for you, so you will have the visuals to support your presentation. So now you know what you will be doing for your assignment and how your work on the assignment links to your weekly homework or your unit tasks, starting with your next week unit task. And it's hopefully clear that this feeds into your seminars. Obviously, not all seminars will be based on your assignment, but several seminars will be dedicated to your work on specific assignment sections. And it's hopefully clear that to support the seminar presentations, there will be seminar discussion forums surrounding the discussion of your assignment. So you will have a strong supporting structure to help you learn evidence-based management through this practical assignment and through these component elements. Okay, so this is all I wanted to cover in this lecture. I hope you enjoyed it and found it interesting and helpful. If you have any questions, please ask away. You know where to do it in your lecture discussion forum on Blackboard. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in discussion forums and next week at the seminar.